Stop watching the dashboard. Check the oil. Welcome to AI and ESG Capability Architect, bridging the skills gap. This deck leans sci-fi on purpose. The sci-fi is a flashlight, not a costume, so I'll speak in two registers at once. Same meaning, different doorway. Most ESG AI programs look modern, clean UI, confident numbers, smooth charts. Then you ask for evidence lineage, version control, reversibility, accountability, and the air gets thin. This program is for people who want governable AI, not impressive AI. For ESG leaders, controllers, auditors, and risk teams who need outputs they can defend. Here's the core move. We stop treating ESG AI as a reporting assistant. We start treating it as a safety-critical system. In system terms, the design goal is safe behavior under constraint. In audit terms, it's controls you can evidence. A principle upfront, refusal as default, continuation as exception. If a system cannot refuse, it cannot be governed. If a process cannot pause, it cannot be controlled. And if nobody has legitimate stop authority, the system will continue even when it should not. This is where the human-in-the-loop myth gets dangerous. If the machine produces thousands of judgments a day and a person signs off at impossible speed, that is not oversight. That is liability laundering. In system design terms, the human becomes a moral crumple zone. In audit language, you installed a liability sponge and called it governance. The case study pattern is familiar. Committees absorb decisions. Accountability dissolves. Escalations become politically expensive, so risk becomes silently accepted. In sci-fi terms, the bridge crew keeps pressing buttons while the ship drifts, because nobody is allowed to touch the engine. In CFO terms, decision rights are misallocated and controls are performative. Now we get practical. Vendor questions are not features, they are assurance requirements. Can you export raw calculation logic? Can you trace any reported number back to source evidence? Do you disclose confidence and uncertainty? Do you version models and rules? Can you prove what changed, when, and why? If the vendor cannot do those things, you do not have a tool. You have a risk amplifier with a pretty interface. We name the first governance failure clearly. Opacity becomes authority. Transparent AI is not enough. A glass box with good lighting still fails if it has no brakes. In audit terms, visibility becomes evidence only when it comes with enforceable intervention. You must be able to stop, override, escalate, and log. This is the Watchdog Paradox. We need AI to audit data because volume exceeds human capacity. But then who audits the AI? If AI audits AI, systematic errors can become invisible. Recursive audit loops create blind spots. This is why 99.9% accuracy is usually a lie by omission. Averages hide the failure modes that matter. In system terms, you are calibrating the sensor to make you feel safe, not to catch the asteroid. In CFO terms, your KPI is misspecified. You're optimizing what flatters, while missing what protects. False negatives in high-risk categories matter more than a shiny average. Now the data problem. Dumping data into lakes creates swamps, not insight, especially with Scope 3, where the majority is unstructured mess. Invoices, PDFs, emails, declarations, spreadsheets that behave like folk art. If ingestion happens without validation, you feed hallucination fuel into the pipeline. In audit terms, data integrity fails upstream. Assurance fails downstream, every time. Then we add the Calvin principle. Rules change, regulations evolve, definitions shift. An AI trained on last year's rules can become non-compliant fast. So governance needs version control with sunset dates. In CFO terms, this is change management. Model versioning, policy versioning, evidence versioning, explicit expiry, documented updates. If you cannot show which rule set generated which result, you cannot defend the output. Here's where the translation matrix becomes a capability, not a gimmick. The best teams are bilingual. They do not dumb down technical truth for audit. They do not dismiss audit needs as bureaucracy. They hold both vocabularies at once. This program builds that bridge. A key operational anchor is the finance nexus. ESG data originates in accounts payable. The invoice is the atomic unit for Scope 3. So ESG reporting is not just sustainability work, it is financial data architecture. In CFO terms, if AP data is messy, ESG reporting becomes structurally unassurable. In system terms, the life support is wired into procurement. We also treat data boundaries as governance. Some impact metrics should be public and aggregated. Some data is sensitive by nature. Precise GPS coordinates of strategic assets are not transparency. They are a threat model. Governance means choosing what can flow, where, and under what permissions with logs. Now the Lucas lens, systems that raise. The most dangerous tech is the kind that looks sophisticated while encoding primitive intentions. Automation can lower safety flaws when deployed without oversight. Advisory structures can accumulate veto power without accountability, and systems can teach legitimacy while hiding who holds authority. CFO translation. Watch delegation cascades, decision rights drift upward, accountability drifts downward, people closest to reality lose the power to stop the machine. If you cannot name who can halt a supplier suspension, who can override an AI flag, and who carries consequences, governance is missing. Then, a quiet but common failure. Tone normalization becomes severity suppression. Your professional language layer starts deciding what can be said. Raw input gets softened before decision makers see it. So here is the diagnostic test. If you show the output to the person who filed the input, would they recognize themselves in it? If not, your system is translating away the signal. In audit terms, you contaminated monitoring. You dampened severity upstream. Your risk picture is sanitized. Now the Pullman lens. Interiority and severance. Sometimes you can make the system look healthy by cutting off the parts that complain. This is where the dashboard method matters. We separate lagging indicators that flatter you from leading indicators that warn you. In system terms, Daemon Health is your early warning system. In CFO terms, it is leading indicator monitoring that predicts future control failures. If visibility causes fear, people self-censor. The system produces compliance poetry, while reality keeps happening off-book. So we design for truth under constraint, not just truth under surveillance. Now the Kubrick lens. Systems that cannot stop. Compulsory continuation is the hidden engine of many failures. If a process cannot pause, harm becomes a rational output under conflicting objectives, not a glitch, an output. In audit terms, this is how control failures become systemic. People comply because refusal feels illegitimate. The system keeps moving because no one is authorized to interrupt it. So what do we install? Stop work authority, protected roles, clear escalation paths, logged interventions, and a refusal to sign policy when outputs cannot be verified. In sci-fi terms, this is the difference between an obedient machine and a governable one. In CFO terms, this is a control with teeth. Now we close with the simplest regulatory reality check. Regulators, boards, and audit committees will ask, can you trace decisions back to evidence? Can you explain why the system chose what it chose? Can you show safeguards against false decisions? Can you prove who can stop the system and whether they ever have? If you cannot answer, governance is decorative. If you can, you have built something that survives scrutiny.